All right, Coast to Coast Combat Hour coming to you on a hot Tuesday night after another event at the UFC Apex in Vegas. Ed Carball here, as always, with Matthew Hawkins. What's going on, Matt? How you handling the heat on the West Coast?
It's different kind of heat than what you're dealing with, but it's hot today. It's about 100 degrees at work, so uh, takes it out of you a little bit. But that's what air
Yeah,
conditioning's for.
yeah. I mean, I didn't put mine up because we usually don't need it out here in Jersey, but I think I'll be doing that after we're done recording. Hopefully, my laptop doesn't explode. But so, what do you think of the fights? I mean, well, first, I guess we should talk about the news that everyone's talking about today. Um, Fight Island was announced for July. Oddly enough, we've talked about it enough about International Fight Week and how different it's been, and now apparently there is no International Fight Week. We have this Fight Island that's kind of not on an island. It's like
What
off
a
the
what a
coast of.
bogus announcement. I
Yeah,
mean,
let's bring up the
you
announcement
know,
here.
so Fight Island is really just in Abu Dhabi, a place the UFC's been before. Not really sure what they had to do for any kind of they said they had to build their infrastructure and all that in one of the richest countries in the world where they already have arena where they've had fights. So I'm really not sure what's going on. I don't know if it's in the same venue that they've used before uh, or what, but
It's from
yeah, kind of
UFC.com.
anticlimactic. We
Yeah,
had all these wild ideas and we should have known better probably. Um,
yeah. A lot of people were thinking like Bodog and like a real like little island. There was rumors that it was some small island off the coast of Panama. I mean, I don't know where people get this shit from, but I mean,
the
like you
UFC
said,
probably leaks it. They
yeah,
probably leak it. I mean, they're selling shirts for Fight Island for God's sake, and
yeah.
then it turns out to be Abu Dhabi. I mean, I'm just glad there's fights, but I'm the whole idea was just stupid. None of it made sense. Other than, I mean, it made sense. They sold shirts. They kept themselves. They set themselves in the news for the last 3 months with
Yeah.
this fictitious Fight Island thing. So hey, but you can't really complain with the fights that they came up with. First event, the UFC 251, Usman Gilbert Burns, Volkanovski Holloway, Peter Yan Aldo, Namajunas Andrade, uh,
I'm worried
Vanzant
about that
Rivas,
one.
Frankie Edgar, Pedro Munoz. I mean, the whole card right now is Volkan Ozdemir versus Prochazka, the Ryzen light heavyweight champion making his debut. So I mean, there's 8 fights announced right now, and every one of them is better than what we got to look forward this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just looking at the yeah, there's Laura Sanka with the shirt of Fight Island, but I don't I mean, it's the whole month of July. So I always try to look for a positive in these announcements, and immediately got shot down the one positive that I was hoping for, which was earlier cards. Especially for me being on the East Coast and doing the stuff I do. Like I had to be up, and I'm usually up for every pay per view. I'm usually up till almost 3 o'clock in the morning after watching the fights and then looking at the interviews and the post fight presser to get my editorial together for MMAnews.com. And then all of a sudden, like that. What was that in Saudi Arabia last year with Khabib and Poirier? Like that card was amazing to me because it was early and over and done with. But I guess maybe I don't know. Isn't it like 1,000 degrees too in
Oh
Abu
yeah,
Dhabi
it's
in
hot.
July?
It's really hot. I mean, they got to do it during regular times. They can't. I mean, they could get away with some of the fight nights that they got lined up the following weeks. Probably
Mm.
doing earlier cards, but if you're gonna have a pay per view on a Saturday night,
Yeah, because
the
that's three
weekend.
days apart. 15th and the 18th. That's only 3 days apart. So
Well, it's the 11th, 15th, 18th, and 25th.
yeah, so it's
So we got a Wednesday, basically Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, following Saturday. Same kind of setup we saw uh, when this kind of kicked off when we had Fight Island, Florida. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, you got good cards, lots of fights. So we'll see. We'll see. I guess how it unfolds. But
I mean,
I
what do
thought
you like? What do you like? I mean, I kind of like that Burns and Usman are got made right away, but I also, you know, like I said, like I think they're just putting together, especially when you look at the news and stuff of the back and forth with all the everybody retiring and John Jones and McGregor and all that stuff. I think we're seeing the fights of the people that are just willing to show up versus like trying to drag things out. It's like if it's a fight they can make, they're just gonna make it now.
I think there is a little to that. They did ask Leon Edwards. He confirmed that he was offered the fight first, but it's hard to get out of the UK right now. So he was really the only other option. Masvidal doesn't seem to want. I mean, I think the reality is, and the UFC is not going to say this. They don't want to have Masvidal fight in an empty arena. They don't want to have Nate Diaz fight in an empty arena. They don't want to have Conor McGregor or Bones Jones fighting in an empty arena. I mean, they're not going to come out and openly say that because it kind of diminishes the fights that they do put on. But they don't want to. They don't want to waste those guys.
Yeah,
Um, it doesn't financially make sense when and what's in the fight world. What's another 6 months? I mean, dudes never fight. Some of these guys never fight. So I mean, if Nate Diaz doesn't fight for another 6 months, but he can fight on New Year's Eve in Las Vegas, then in front of a crowd, then what does it matter really? I mean, I think that's from a business standpoint, that's what I'd be looking at. I love the Gilbert Burns getting the fight. I think he deserves it. We talked about it. We've talked about it several times. The guy's a workhorse, and I like that he's
Mhm.
getting rewarded for not taking it easy during this little run we've had right now, and staying super active, especially at the end of the year, and just keeping his name out there, being active on Twitter, even if in joking manners, willing to accept any replacement fight that would fall through. I think he did a good job of marketing himself, and gaining a following that he didn't have a year ago. A year ago, most people didn't even know who he was, and
yeah,
now he's seems to be one of the more popular fighters among MMA Twitter. So I think that's great. The what other the Aldo getting the title shot doesn't make any sense. Never did make any sense. But that him versus Jan is a hell of a fight. A fight that I'd pay to go watch. It just doesn't make sense for a title.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't get that initially, and now now it's kind of like again, what if Aldo can get, they're just making like if you can get to Fight Island, Matt Hawkins is gonna fight. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like they're trying to put together just names so that people to get people to tune in, especially if it's going to be something that's like a pay per view, and we can go back to the last all these pandemic episodes we've been talking about, pay per views and numbers and what's true and what isn't, because we don't really know, like you said, you've been saying we don't really know who's buying what. So um
Yeah, I mean, I think they had even before this started, they had Aldo initially scheduled to fight Cejudo, so it's not like he's not a complete surprise that he's fighting for the title. It just never made sense from the moment that they ever thought about bringing him into the title picture. After losing to Marlon Moraes in his only 135-pound career fight, it just seemed really strange, especially when you see the contenders um, out there, and with especially with one of them really shining this past weekend that we'll get to. But
mhm.
I mean, I like 3 fights in a week. I'll take it. It does seem like they they kind of did it with UFC 249. It seems like they stacked the hell out of the pay per view, and then we're going to end up occasionally with an event like we got this Saturday that's pretty lackluster.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't know. I think it's great the UFC's put on fights. I haven't been super impressed with their, this Apex center in Vegas. I hear all this, it's supposed to be state of the art and stuff. It doesn't look that great to me on TV. I don't know if you caught any of the boxing. I didn't get the boxing tonight, but I got to see some of the stuff yesterday. And I mean, that arena they had set up at the MGM Grand in the convention center. Um, looked cool. Just a lot of lights, video boards, just a different kind of feel. I feel like the UFC events, you're watching an event in an empty arena when they put it on, and that seems kind of strange to me, or one complaint, but I don't know. A lot of good fights, like I said. One of the events, Figueiredo Benavides 2, another fight that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think this is another one that they're kind of throwing together, but it's because the should be champ Figueiredo missed weight, and one of the
Yeah,
events doesn't have a main event yet, but you know.
yeah, that's the first thing. That's the first thing I think of is when he missed weight and the fact that they're throwing that together. But um, Yuri Yuri's making a comment here. See if I can't bring that up.
Yeah, but McGregor's not going down to 135. It might set
Yeah,
up a rematch at like I don't know. I mean, in theory, that would make sense if they were trying to get Aldo back to 145 belt, but I don't. McGregor's not cutting any weight. I mean,
yeah.
eh,
Well, McGregor doesn't seem to be doing anything since he's retired for the third time. So, but I mean, hey, I mean, well, and that just goes back to what we've been talking about, how they're pulling these fights out of I don't want to say thin air, but I mean, I guess he made an interest. Dana White made an interesting comment after UFC 250 during the post fight presser, where people were just kind of addressing the whole contract thing and all these people kind of on the same page as far as fighter pay goes, and he was just like, there's people that are. I'm not going to quote him directly, not that I mind cursing or whatever, but he kind of just said, if you're not with me, then you're against me. And it looks like the people that are on the bus that he referred to, those are the fights that are going to get made, even if they're Aldo and who's Jose Aldo for Peter? No,
Getting
right?
on. Yeah,
Peter
Jan was
Yan.
just
Yeah.
supposed to be there.
So
Yeah. I mean, we hear Dana White saying this. It seems like every couple years we go through the same, you know, uh, chatter as far as fighters complaining. He makes his claims, and then it just dies down. I did see a guy on ESPN go after him pretty good. It was on Twitter. I don't know if it was either today or last night. It was a
it was
video
today.
of, yeah, he went
Yeah.
after him about a former NFL player who was real familiar with the unionization and player rights and stuff. And
Get Up, I think, was the show with him and Kellerman, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
his name slips my mind, but I he you could tell it ticked Dana White off, and it now that they're on ESPN, I think it's just a matter of time before it becomes a little bit of a ticking time bomb, and he starts getting called out because you're going to start having. He's not getting the schmo MMA media, and I don't mean the schmo, but a schmo MMA media guy asking him a question.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
shaking in their boots, and
Yeah.
he's gonna get guys that make $1 million and work on ESPN breathing down his neck, and that's going to make him
Yeah.
uncomfortable. We always get
Yeah.
told, that we get told the fighters are contractors, but they're not allowed to. If you're when I was a contractor, you get hired for a job, but you can take other jobs.
Yeah.
When that job's done, you can move on. Um, if you're if the person you're dealing with breaks the contract, you can tell them to go jump in a lake. I mean, there's stuff like that, whereas and he keeps using that independent contractor is what he's using, and he uses that for his advantage, but there's nothing. It's basically so they don't have to pay insurance. They don't have to, they don't the contractor is supposed to take care of himself. He's just hired to do the work. But they don't have any of the real rights that an independent contractor would have, and especially the ability to move on. Uh, and especially like in John Jones' case, where him being the champion, he basically keeps. The only way John Jones could really leave is if he gets stripped, or and then loses he has to lose fights and have his
Yeah.
contract expire. As long as
Yeah.
he's champ and keeps winning, it'll automatically extend his
And
contract
but
and
that's the
keep him
thing, though.
locked
Like
in.
for their own marketability, that losing doesn't really, make them biddable for other promotions. So like you said, it's people always use the term way back when, before the sport got as popular as it is. We used to hear the term sticky contracts, and that's what makes them sticky. Like, you're not going to lose on purpose to because you want to leave, but it looks like the out contractually. And if you want to see like contracts, Eric McGracken, who runs Combat Sports Law, has it up on his website. If you want to see their like the standard contract, and I mean he's the other one that keeps saying, I mean, because like he's addressed directly John Jones, Masvidal, and McGregor, and told them like, you guys are in a position to start this whole unionization thing that we've been hearing for years. How many times have we seen these little union attempts come up and
Mm.
go nowhere? The thing with Bjorn Rebney, I forget what that was called.
I don't
I already,
remember.
I mean, either because it's not the first time. Couture's been on Capitol Hill with the other guy that used to fight. That's on that works in government now. I forget his name. They've called Mark Ratner out on stuff there, and it's just like it's this is not anything new. Oh boy, I hope you don't lose me. I might disappear for a second, but it's not anything new. Uh, you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah, no, and a lot of this it stems from the uh, early days, especially of Zuffa and Dana White owning the UFC, where they lost. They didn't have the contracts that were as binding, so they had situations where, like Randy Couture, as the UFC champion, went and fought in Japan in Valley Tudo, Japan, and they had BJ Penn leave to go do his Rumble on the Rock thing, and you had Merlo Bustamante leave as the champion to go to Pride, and it can screw stuff up. I mean, if you have champions leaving, it screws up the cohesiveness of trying to run an organization and stuff. But you can't really have it both ways. Yeah, we just lost Ed there, so it's one of those things that just keeps going on and on. The there's really a no-win situation until the UFC really opens up the books and starts paying these guys enough to keep them happy. Without keeping them happy, there's always going to be complaints. And like I said, now with ESPN being aboard, you're gonna have a lot more outspoken people that are going to be they're going to be calling it into question. Um, so there he is. Ed's back. But yeah, is with ESPN. I was just saying with ESPN now, it's going to be a different ball game from Dana White. He's not going to be able to dodge this, especially if you have stars. I mean, just in the last couple weeks, we've had Cejudo retire and be stripped. We've had John Jones asked to be released and essentially now claim he's retired. We've had Conor McGregor claim he's retired. We've had Masvidal uh,
yeah,
ask for his release. Um, Nate Diaz never fights because he never thinks he's getting paid enough money. So, like I was just saying, like until the UFC opens up their books and really starts paying these guys enough to
well,
quiet them down, and it has to go all the way down the food chain.
yeah, and that's what I was saying before with McGracken. I mean, he's said like there's Project Spearhead is the latest attempt at getting everyone together. They have a website where they can download the cards, fill them out, and if they can bring the numbers together high enough, they can do the unionization thing. But I mean, like we said, I mean, we've seen other versions of it. I mean, the thing is, if you get a few, you're not going to get everyone together because they know they can throw money at their higher profile fighters to break that up. You know what I mean? So
It for it to work, it'll have to take John Jones, it'll have to take Conor McGregor, it'll have to take one of the superstars to lead the charge. If one of them leads the charge, it has a chance. Just being the prelim guys bitching and moaning and trying to do something, it'll never work because there'll always be stars that'll be willing. I shouldn't say always be, but until your stars are willing to be jump aboard, they'll just keep fighting. The UFC, I mean, we're seeing right now, how many guys are doing like 2 week turnarounds? Hannah Cyphers, who just lost last week, is now fighting
yeah,
again next week. I mean, it's amazing how when they need fights, all of a sudden dudes can fight like every other week. But the history of the last 10 years of MMA, you haven't been able to get a fight. It seems like if you fight twice a year, you're lucky. So
yeah,
it's always amazed me how that worked. And the Masvidal thing, I think I said it right after that, the whole BMF thing with Diaz. He needed to strike while it was hot. Um, and look where we're at now. I mean, we're 8 months later, and he hasn't. He's still popular, but nowhere near as popular as he was towards the end of 2019. And now who knows what they're going to do with him. It sounds more and more likely we'll get some other, you know, it's not going to be a title fight anytime in the next 6 months. Uh, Probably more than that. Probably, because if they're fighting in July, if Usman wins, he hasn't been super active. Burns is gonna if Burns wins, he's certainly gonna want to take time off. We've seen that. We've seen that routine before. You know,
Yeah, I'm actually
and
worried. I'm worried that if all this I mean, he's been competing steadily since for like months. Like I'm worried that it might not work out for him, especially when you look at that we talked about the heat, the time difference, and all that stuff. Quick turnaround. Like it might be too much for him, but
yeah, but he
I don't
hasn't really
know.
taken in his MMA bouts. He hasn't really taken much punishment. So, I mean, I don't. I think that's good, at least on his body. He doesn't seem to be complaining about injuries. I mean, he's willing to jump right into camp.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think it's better. I think if you look through the history of the fighters, I think the guys that have stayed active tend to be better. I mean, you look at some of the older guys that have 40, 50, 60 wins. They also got some losses, but to me, that's it keeps refining themselves, and um, I don't know. But either way, I think I think they dropped the ball with Masvidal. If they really wanted to get rich, McGregor would have fought him in July or January instead of
The,
Cowboy. That
you
was
know
the
what's weird about
mistake.
yeah, yeah, no, but the thing about the money, I think, and again, we're not exactly billionaires sitting. Obviously, you're sitting in your fight room, and I'm in my fucking bedroom, my little studio apartment here in Jersey. But it's like, uh, I think the thing from the fighters is like, okay, if you have money, because if you saw I mean, Dana White did a lot of interviews today, not just that one from the Get Up. He did TMZ Sports and a bunch of other places. And in one of those, he mentioned that they've secured their own airline too to get these guys over there to Abu Dhabi. So it's like, okay, you're talking about infrastructures and islands and all this stuff like that, and cordoned off areas with the fighter hotel and dining and all that stuff. So you have money for all of that, but you can't just have us all come to the apex, or the fighters that can't come to the apex and pay them. You know what I mean? Like I think that's probably part of why they're wanting more money or wanting to renegotiate their contract. It's like you're spending a lot of money. You're talking about how expensive things are, so it looks like you do have the funds to pay us, but you're spending it on other things, and when you could just move forward, like they could technically just do things at the apex until, you know what I mean.
Well, in a sense,
Except
they
except for
can.
the international
Yeah,
stuff,
it's the
obviously.
international fighters, so that's why this whole Fight Island thing came about, which to me also brings up a good point. Then is like, why are you flying Gilbert Burns and Usman to Abu Dhabi when you could do that in Las Vegas? Why
Yeah,
are you flying? I mean, it should be this should be safe for the Whitaker Till fight. This should be safe for Volkov and Blades, which is what they're doing. But and I don't know where some of these other dudes live. I don't know if Figueiredo lives in the United States or in Brazil or where. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the fights, Frankie Edgar, Pedro Munoz. I'm assuming both those guys are in the United States. They don't need to be flying those guys, 15,000 miles or whatever the hell the distance is to well, I guess it's
Yeah,
not as
yeah,
far from the East Coast, but whatever it is, 8,000 miles.
yeah.
Um, so that seems weird to me. That you would think that they would be
It's like
focusing on.
it's more financial trouble than it's worth. But
That's the
I
way
don't
I
know.
see it. I mean, how would you
Yeah,
like to be Frankie Edgar, fly all the way to Abu Dhabi, test positive for COVID, and have to fly all the way back?
yeah,
When it could have been in the United States, and he's at least East Coast, so you're still flying 3,000, 3,500 miles even to Vegas, so maybe it's not as big of a deal for him. But any West Coast fighters that are flying to Abu Dhabi, I mean, you're talking, you're looking at, you're almost at that's what, a 15-hour flight or something like that. I mean, uh that's pretty extreme, and
yeah.
I don't know. That just doesn't make sense to me. I would do all international on those. When you got a fight like Holloway and Volkanovski, where you kind of have to, it's international, and so that's you do that one out there because you got to get Volkanovski um, there, So I don't know, but anyways, I mean, a lot of fights. Hopefully they hold from what we have announced so far,
Yeah,
and we'll see what happens. I mean, I can't
I
really
guess we
complain.
should talk about
Yeah, I
what's
mean
that?
the fights they've put on so far have been good. The events have been good. Most of
Yeah,
them have lived up. So I mean, I don't mean to complain about the product itself. It just seems like the logistics of it are a little odd. Uh,
yeah, to say the least. I mean,
we
like
had
you said, we like the fights so far. This past weekend we had the most recent pay per view UFC 250. I mean, there was some pretty significant finishes on that card. I think it was one of the cards that people were kind of on the fence about, but I wasn't unhappy with it. I mean, well, what stood out to you outside of those devastating knockouts from Garvin O'Malley?
I mean, pretty much that. Uh, Alex Caceres, prelim main event, was an underdog to Chase Hooper, and he really put on a great performance. One of the better
Yeah,
performances of his career. O'Malley, we both predicted him to win. He did it. I think at some point, Eddie Wineland's a great veteran, but we need to see O'Malley versus somebody that's a real super threat to him. I think, and then and he's really he's one win away from heavy recognition, and then he's probably two wins away from a title, considering how popular he is. Uh, and he should not in my mind he shouldn't be. In my mind, he's about 3 or 4 fights away from a title, but the UFC is going to use him with his popularity. If he can win it, he needs one more big win, and I think they won't hesitate to drop him in somewhere, especially if we keep up. I mean, there's no reason for not a quick turnaround. I don't know of any injuries he faced. If I was
no,
UFC, I'd push him out again. Uh,
he was another one complaining about money too in his post fight interview. I mean,
I mean,
so
he's an opening pay per view fight at this point. Uh,
yeah,
I don't know what he's getting paid though, so I'm sure it's nothing great coming off of the Contender Series. Neil Magny, we both picked him to win, and he did his thing. A close fight with Martin, but
yeah.
he's
When I
we'll
saw
see.
Martin didn't get that takedown, I kind of thought in my mind I was like, that verifies that maybe Magny was too big for him, you know. But yeah, it kind of went the way that I saw it was going.
He's what is his 16th win at welterweight, and only 3 behind George St. Pierre now for the UFC record. So it might take a couple years, depending on who he fights in his next few bouts. But uh, it's hard to believe at some point he's not going to pick up 4 more wins if he he go 4-4 over the next 8 years, and I mean he'll get up there in age, but with the record out there, it seems like he's pretty much a shoe in to break it. The big 3 fights of the night: uh, Aljamain Sterling, the guy I hinted at earlier, who really should be fighting for the title against Jan. Uh, Rear naked choke first round. I didn't think he'd do it. Sandhagen gets choked out quickly, and Sterling looks great and didn't
Yeah,
take any abuse.
he's been wanting it for a while, so I actually did. I saw him winning. I didn't see him winning like that so dominantly, but yeah, I mean he's been stomping his foot on the ground for a while to get to get his shot at the title, and I actually wrote in my one of my previews, um, these guys had to do something to 'cause especially after Dana White had announced, I think it was the Wednesday before that this was the title eliminator. So yeah, he's secured his spot. No more arguing on Twitter and calling anyone out. Him and Peter Yan have exchanged barbs before, so I think they feel like they're going to wind up facing each other anyway. Because Jose Aldo is playing with fire at 135. I think. I mean, even though I know he did well or whatever, but still, it's you know that's we already talked enough
It's
about
tough.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean you've seen Sterling and Jan go at it, but I feel like while they're going at it, it's almost from like the same perspective because they both have earned really a title shot. So I mean I feel like they've been calling each other out, like let's fight, let's do this. It hasn't been really a disrespectful kind of thing. It's been like we're kind of both being thrown under the bus right now with with all these other crazy fights being put together. Let's get the two, top two young championship contenders together, and do this. So with Cejudo out of the way, it made it easy at that point. It opened up the door for both of them, and I mean Aldo's not going to be a walkover. It's going to be but it's hard to see him uh, getting the win in that fight personally. But next fight, another prediction I was wrong. We were both wrong. Rafael Sunsao gets knocked into 2022 with
That was bad.
probably one of the most, I mean, not probably, one of the most devastating right hand punches I've ever seen,
Yeah.
especially from the smaller guys, 135. I mean, he cocked, loaded, and smashed that punch, man. I mean, that was like video game, like, you know, rear back and let it
I
go.
I thought Asunciao was going to retire because he was taking off his glove. They were announcing when they were talking to Garbrandt and stuff. He commented on it. He put on Twitter like the following Monday. He's like that he watched it a bunch of times and he was like, good on Garbrandt, but Jesus, I mean, like you said, somebody compared it to Roy Jones Jr. because Roy Jones used to do that where he put his hands behind his back and kind of looked away and then went right back at you.
Yeah, it
But
was
he actually
like,
never did look away. Yeah, Daniel Cormier pointed out how when he went down, he was already looking at his chin, so he can throw that whatever the overhand right hook or whatever that punch from hell that he threw. I mean that was and I mean another shout out for New Jersey because that's from him stepping outside of his comfort zone, coming out here and training with Mark Henry. Shout out to Pino's Pizzeria. That's Mark Henry's Pizzeria, literally in the town that I live in right now. So yeah, pretty amazing stuff.
yeah, I mean, knockout of the year right now. I mean, that was brutal. So big win for Garbrandt. I mean, his career was basically his UFC career was certainly teetering. A loss there would have been four in a row, and would have been a tough one to come back from. Now, again with Cejudo out of the mix and his name value, he jumps right back into the fray of five or six names that can be put into a hat really at this point and drawn out.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
uh, big
That's
win for
probably how
him.
they're making fights anyway.
Might be, we don't hear from the matchmakers and stuff that often anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Amanda Nunes main event. We both picked her to win. I thought she'd finish her earlier. Spencer, I should have known how tough she was based off of her Cyborg fight. Proved her toughness. Took a whooping, ass beating for a solid 25 minutes, but never
Tough pick.
backed down and never stopped coming
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, and Nunes, I think it was like plus 500 for Nunes to win by decision, which was one of the better bets to make if you're going to bet on Nunes. I know that because that's what I did. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Well, you'll be able to afford a haircut. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And when the barbershop's open in 2 weeks, maybe with our jackass governor, but don't get me started with that.
But yeah, I mean, Nunes cements herself as the the current goat of women's MMA in UFC specifically, and um, I mean, I don't know what's next for her. I don't have any idea who the heck. I mean, they just signed Irina Aldana to fight Holly Holm in sometime in July. I think it is, maybe
Yeah.
early August. If Aldana wins there, I think that she then gets the shot uh, at Nunes. But as we've seen with Holly Holm could get knocked out in the first 10 minutes and possibly get another, or 10 seconds and get another title shot. So I don't know. I mean,
Hey, the UFC likes them some Holly Holm, that's for sure.
she cleaned out the division. I'm not real sure what they're gonna do. It wouldn't surprise me if they fold the 145-pound division. Doesn't seem to, or at least it becomes a division that nobody even really talks about, and maybe we don't see the belt defended for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
For her, I feel like super fight because he doesn't seem he's not interested in Shevchenko Nunes 3. for 135, and I just feel like for her, I mean, there's nothing left for her to prove. She literally beat everyone there is to beat anywhere for her the weight classes she's in. I mean, Holm, Rousey, Tate, Cyborg. Um, now it's just like I mean, how many more people do you want her to play with for 5 rounds? I mean, again, and Felicia Spencer, if anyone had a chance to shock folks, I thought it would have been Spencer, with how tough she, like you said, she kept walking forward and stuff. But maybe a one or two super fights, like maybe do the thing with Clarissa Shields if you just want to make a bunch of money, and but somebody I think it was Joe Rogan during the broadcast was like said Clarissa Shields start training takedown defense just to make something happen, because it's just like you said, what else are we going to do with her? But if she wants to retire and call it a day, because I know her girlfriend, they're going to have a kid together and stuff, and so it's like, hey man, live your
I
life.
mean, I don't think she should retire. I think if anything, she should just keep beating the hell out of people and pretty much not getting touched. I mean, she's not
Yeah,
taking really any damage. Now that can obviously change in a matter of one fight. You could take a beating of a lifetime, but she's
yeah,
not. I don't see anybody out there that is. The only fight that really makes that I'm interested in is a rematch with Cyborg, and that's not going to happen.
no.
Um, so I don't really know what the Shevchenko fight I'd watch again. I mean, both of those first two fights were good and close,
Yeah,
but
and they've both evolved so much since the last time. I'm interested too, but we got to see what's in the matchmaking hat for the next
what
rest of the
about your
year.
what about your girl from your shirt, the PFL right there? Uh,
Oh, that's
they
the
they're
training
they're
partner of
they're
her.
training
Yeah,
partners, yeah.
yeah.
So uh, that's not going to happen. Although that would be a fight that would
Mm,
potentially. I mean, there who else is out there?
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
but I mean, even Kayla Harrison has even
yeah.
admitted they're light years apart in experience, and
I'm sure, but it would be one of those fights that it could potentially be interesting if Harrison is able to land takedowns. I mean, so far she's been able to in all of her MMA fights,
yeah,
against obviously competition much lower than Nunes.
yeah. I mean, she's admitted that Nunez does get the best of her in sparring, so I have a feeling it wouldn't be much different than what we've been seeing. So,
Perhaps, but it would be one that will at least have some,
oh yeah, it would
you know,
definitely have some fire
there
behind
would
it.
be
You
some
can
buzz
market it.
behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see what they're gonna do with her right now. So,
they could.
uh,
I mean, it'd be nice. They're both under ESPN. You could do a little cross promotional PFL champ versus UFC champ, and that'd be good for both promotions as far as eyeballs coming out of a pandemic, looking for to get something going. But again,
no,
we know
I
Dana
forgot they
White
were
doesn't.
I forgot they were training partners. That's not happening for
Yeah, no.
uh,
Well, I mean, Usman
ever.
and Burns are training partners, and that's happening. But everyone's view on that is different. Personally, I don't like it. I don't like there's too much knowledge there. I know Henry Hoof said he's probably stay home, like for Usman and Burns. Said he's rather stay home and not even corner anyone, because it's a weird culture, dojo culture, gym culture, whatever you want to call it. But it's kind of not cool. But again, it is the fight business, and when business gets inserted into anything, the loyalties can always change, unfortunately. So
Yeah, I mean, to me it's different because Burns has put in his due, and for him to turn it down might be something he never gets another chance. Harrison would be jumping into something just to kind of fill the void of the division right now, and
mm,
that makes a lot less sense with her, especially being as raw as she is in her career. It potentially could be really bad for her, but
yeah.
it's just one of those fights that stylistically be interesting. Duran to me is an interesting fight if she could learn to stop a takedown. I mean, if but again, she was embarrassing and how she got taken
Yeah.
down.
As soon as I hear Durand to me, I think UFC 208, and I've already
Yeah.
written it off. So, I mean, we do have fights this weekend. I mean, we got a little bit of time left, so I guess we should talk about this weekend's fights. Let me see if I can bring back that screen before my technical difficulties that I have.
I mean, no offense to anybody fighting on this card, but it really is uh, not a whole lot of interest or
I mean, I
fights
like
that really.
Cavillo, but I like Cavillo because she's got a lot. You know, I like her rear naked choke wins that she's secured.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. That's a good fight. I have no problem with Ivers Cavillo. I think that it's a good fight, but it's a good like headlining prelim.
I
You
also
know,
like this fight here with
yeah, that's probably the best fight on the card, to be honest. If everybody uh, shows up, Borg versus was it Dashvili? Uh,
yeah,
I
Merab
mean that's the
Dashvili.
fight that has potential fight of the night written on it right there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, just there's, I mean,
Hey, I mean, we could
look.
get shocked by eyeing
Oh,
and
oh,
Cavillo.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the fights could be great. They could turn out to be the best 11 fights of the whole year. But I just don't see a lot of meaning in any of the fights, and that's where that's what generally that's what separates the UFC from like King of the Cage or Titan for that matter is that you the fights really mean something in the grand scheme of MMA. Titan not it has their, if you're a champion in Titan, you're moving up the thing. It's more of like a King of the Cage or kind of a regional show. I mean, this easily could be like a regional card. This could be a Titan card. It maybe not with Cavillo and I headlining it, but uh, that fight right there could be the headline of a Titan card, and with the rest of this filling it out. And I don't think anybody would blink at it. Um, but Andre Feely, didn't we just watch him fight too? Seems like these dudes are turning around quick. Or was it?
Again, I think it's just logistics. If you ain't hurt, you're around. You're next. You're
Yeah,
up again. You
I
know.
mean, we get the Carl Robinson, Marvin Vanetti, or Vittori fight that was canceled, and there was some hotel hijinks after
Did
the.
they not have an image of Charles Jourdain? Why do they have nobody there? Oh, it's not loading. That's my laptop. Sorry.
What was it? They got his record accurate. They don't. They have Jourdain. Yeah, they have the record accurate on that fight. So they seem to do pretty well with the the lower uh, ranked guys, but it's a light heavyweight fight. Vittori, one of the guys that I mean, I a lot of people think that he beat Israel Adesanya. Definitely gave him his toughest fight to date. Uh, but
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he took a round in that fight, and it was 50-50 going into the decision who was going to win it. So I mean, it's fights. It's ESPN Plus, I believe, is the entire card. Uh, as you've stated earlier or other times, I believe they will replay it on ESPN or ESPN2, at least the prelims later in the night. So there'll be that, and that's this
Yeah.
Saturday, 3 p.m. or 6 p.m. Eastern time. Prelims scheduled to start from Las Vegas from the Apex. So 11 bouts and it's fights. Not really going to complain. The beat goes on, and with the announcements for July, it looks like we got fights pretty solid through August. We also saw, I think it was August 15th is the date right now for Miocic and Cormier 3. And then mid September, I don't remember the exact date, is the target date right now for Khabib and Gagey. So there is some big stuff out there. I'm interested to see if we ever start getting crowds arriving anytime after summer. But you know, and then we should start hearing some announcements from Bellator pretty soon. I would think. We're
Yeah,
a
we're
month
in,
out
we're
from
in,
July. That was always the rumored start time for them.
yeah, and I've seen a couple of their fighters kind of start to make little hints on social media that they're getting ready for things. Some always stay ready, so um, I think you kind of have to when you're an active fighter on a roster with a multiple fight contract. So yeah, man. I mean,
I'll be curious to see what they do if they try to do an empty thing or uh, if they go to like Mohegan. They kind of do the Indian reservation tour a
well,
little bit.
the last thing they said was closed studio lots at one of CBS studios. So
In New
that's
York or
probably
in LA?
out by you, yeah, on the West Coast. So I feel like that's the safest thing for them to do. Just do that. Kind of like what we just said with the Apex. Like just use your location that you have secured, cleaned, and things set up to do things. Bellator doesn't go international that much. I know they have fighters international that come over, but I mean, there's so much talent that wants to fight. I think that they can get to them, especially on your side of the country. They could probably do a pretty good job there if they do the closed studio lot on the West Coast. I mean, if they come to Mohegan, the Northeast is obviously scary when it comes to COVID because the Northeast numbers were so high, and I just think that the risk is too
Is
great.
Mohegan open now?
No, not yet. Uh, I get emails updates, and none of them have been the same. They just they're continuing to remain closed.
See,
Trying to see.
I mean, I haven't been down to Pachanga, but I believe it's open now. So I'm wondering if they could have their bigger events maybe behind closed doors, but
Oh well,
if they kind of want to do the smaller tour, of I mean, I don't know what the deal is in Thackerville, Oklahoma, but they got the other
correction
arena.
on Mohegan. I did get an email towards the end of May that they began their reopening process this month as of June 1st.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm sure they're going to avoid having big things going there, but
yeah,
I think after the fourth, I think in about another month, I think you could start seeing that. I mean, if you have arena, Mohegan's huge, but like if they were to do the West Coast, the one in my neighborhood, you're looking at a couple thousand people, and I don't know if in another month or so, if that's something that they would even be interested in trying to sell tickets and getting some kind of gate revenue to help
so their
supplement the
announcement
cost.
says Mohegan and Foxwoods, because they're both reservation land. Neither property will open its concert venues, buffets, or poker rooms, and tenant restaurants will be open for takeout only. So I don't think events are going to be there. That's as soon as we would like. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's weird out here, especially in the Northeast. I don't know how things are by you, but I mean, depends on who's running the show too. My jackass governor extended the 30-day state of emergency again for another 30 days last week, and then today he says he's lifting the stay-at-home orders. So who knows what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you guys got hit a lot harder. I mean, I
Yeah.
honestly couldn't even, if it wasn't for seeing some people wear masks outside, I wouldn't even know that it even exists anymore. That's really where it's at. The amount of traffic, the amount of
Yeah.
people out and about. I mean, you can't completely dine in at all places, but
Yeah.
some of them you can. It's up to the restaurants. The restaurants are choosing not to do it. I think because they basically have figured they're making decent money with the takeout. So why even risk it and go through the
But
process? But
don't get me wrong, the governor lifted his stay-at-home order today, but nobody here's been following it. Every time I go out, there's people all over the place.
yeah, but like hair salons opened here last Monday.
Not
Uh,
here.
yeah, bars are going. Uh, so that's I mean that's what I mean by like some of the smaller reservation fights that they have where they have smaller arenas. Not Mohegan Sun, you're looking at 12,000 people. I'm just wondering
My pandemic
if
hairdo.
you know Bellator could realistically hold an event like a Pachanga and really have a 500 person crowd, charge $150 a ticket, and and make whatever that adds up to. I know it's not a
That's,
lot of money, but
no,
it's
it's funny you
better
say
than
that
nothing.
though. It's funny you say that though. I don't know if you saw it. If you go to MMAnews.com's YouTube channel, my interview with Benson Henderson, that was literally the Monday before the pandemic was officially declared. And he said, because everybody there at that media day in New York City, everybody was in that room wanted to fight each other. And Benson Henderson said to me, he was like, "Put together the fight right now. We're all here." He was like, "Let us all fight each other now." Here in New York City, sells the tickets for $1,000 tickets. He was like, everybody will make money and it'll sell out. And that's pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much the idea he had. And like you said, now it looks like it's more viable because I mean, the real, like you're someone like yourself. If you can get to it and you can get a ticket, you're going to be there. You know.
And then I mean, some of these places. and again, it won't work for UFC. Now UFC, like honestly, like this fight card we had now would have been the perfect Tachi Palace card. That's like an outdoor arena. If you do an open air outdoor, you put 2,500 seats kind of in a parking lot, basically with a cage in the middle, and a lot of these. It seems like you can make a little bit of money behind it. I don't know if it's worth the risk or the hassle of even setting something up and
Yeah.
moving it in and out of the arena and the rental cost of the arena and stuff. Maybe all that supersedes the profits you could make from a crowd. But I think the first event that starts having crowds, no matter what sport it is, I think that they're going to make a killing because I think people are going to be jumping at the bit to. I mean, I'd go
Yeah.
watch a tennis tournament at this point. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. I'm ready to get out and
Dude,
go do
they've
some sport.
opened. We have only had one drive-in theater in this state for like the last few years. Now a couple of them are opening up, and I think like you had to pre-purchase tickets, and they're sold. Like you said, people are just ready to, I think we're like people are just ready to get out and do something.
Yeah, and I mean, I with the yeah, with everything that's been going on, I think people are have reached their breaking point
Yeah.
in a lot of in a lot of aspects of life. But
Yeah.
with this, I mean, and I think people are going to see the damage that shutting everything down kind of caused, and they are seeing it. So I think people are just want to get back at it, and
Are you finding that people have forgotten how to drive?
yeah, I mean, this is Southern California. Nobody knows how to
Yeah.
drive around here. Thank God it's not we don't have rain right now. Otherwise, it would be probably chaos. But no, it's just weird. It was like there was a flip of the switch, and it went from nobody on the road to just gridlock traffic again on
Oh
my way
wow.
home from work. So it's weird, but the people I talk to and uh, maybe my group of people weren't all the people that were ready to lock down right at the start of this. They were always, they kind of lean the other direction. But almost everybody I talk to is happy that this is coming to an end, ready to go out. Um, the numbers they see and the people that are really in threat of it uh, are not them in theory, based off a lot of the numbers. So they want to get moving and start making money again. And the people that have businesses need to just get it open. And uh, without that, their life ends if they can't make money. I mean, that's the way of the world. And
Yeah.
we ended up getting a whole, we got a nice little check, but nothing that's going to support.
No.
Me and you are able to make money. uh, we were the lucky ones that got some
Oh
money through
yeah.
this.
Absolutely.
But without a steady paycheck, that $1,200 would have looked, that would have bought dog food. So,
Yeah.
um, you know. But anyways, that'll wrap us up for this week. We'll just keep on the Fight Island news into next week, and we'll have the results of this weekend's card. Follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, on Twitter at MMAHawk21. Also on Instagram at MMAHawk21. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter and Carbeerzol on Instagram. Uh, Till next weekend.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the fights.
Yep, you too.